its energy bills in the lifetime of the project. Will the Secretary of State join me in celebrating this excellent start to our nationalised Great British Energy Company and update the House on next steps to get us towards that mission?
I do join my honourable friend in saying this, and I would say to all the members opposite who voted against GB Energy, many of them will now be getting solar panels on schools and hospitals in their own home, and let all their constituents know these are local MPs who oppose cutting bills for schools and hospitals in their own constituencies.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. I'd like to welcome the £17 million of government funding to Norwich's Labour-led City Council to improve energy efficiency in homes. It will help tackle fuel poverty and provide much more comfort. Would the Minister welcome Norwich Labour's leadership in this issue, but also set out how we will provide more funding to local councils so that they can go further faster?
Well, I think the my honourable friend raises a really, really important point about the crucial role of local authorities in relation to these issues. One of the things that my right honourable friend, the Deputy Prime Minister, has done is devolve more funding to combined authorities in this. We want to go further, including in relation to local authorities, because it is local authorities that know best the particular needs of their own locality, including hers. I congratulate hers, and local authorities are a key part of the answer to this energy efficiency upgrade that we need.
Ms Vince.
Number 8, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Great British Energy will support the creation of thousands of high-quality, well-paid jobs right across the country and help rebuild the UK's industrial heartlands. Just last week, the Prime Minister announced £300 million for Great British Energy to kickstart supply chains here in the UK, and once the bill finishes its final stages in Parliament, we will be coming forward with more exciting plans for our domestic clean energy champion.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his response and welcome the £300 million worth of investment into GB Energy last week. What opportunity, and I think we all recognise the opportunity of the green energy transition. What opportunities are there for constituents of my constituency of Harlow to be part of that publicly owned energy company?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for his question, and he's absolutely right to point out the fact that what we're trying to do with Great British Energy and with our Clean Power mission is create the jobs that deliver that transition here in the UK, something that was failed by the party opposite for many, many years. So we expect this funding and much more that will come from Great British Energy to mobilise more than £1 billion in private investment in domestic supply chains, driving forward the manufacturing and industry here in the UK and the good jobs that go with it.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. What assessment has the Minister made as to the number of jobs that Great British Energy will create in the People's Republic of China?
Well, I think the right honourable gentleman there lets the game away that while the party opposite didn't particularly care where the supply chains were, we are committed in this party to delivering good, well-paid jobs in this country. And the right honourable gentleman, if he was so concerned about investing in British supply chains, might have bothered to vote for Great British Energy in the first place.
Secretary of State, Andrew.
Mr Speaker, when GB Energy was first proposed, we were told it would employ 1,000 people and create 650,000 jobs. Fast forward to February this year, and that number has been revised down to 200 to 300, with a vague commitment to 1,000 at some point in the next 20 years. As the General Secretary of the GMB said just yesterday, they are going to open a shiny new office in a street full of charity shops because they are closing the city of Aberdeen down. GB Energy is a white elephant. If the GMB can see it, why can't the Minister? Surely he agrees that the way to deliver jobs, growth, energy security and protect communities like Aberdeen as soon as possible is to lift the ban on licences, replace the EPL as soon as possible and declare the North Sea open for business.
Well, Mr Speaker, I'm not quite sure what variety of parts in that speech he would like me to respond to. As usual, he steamrolls through his questions faster than he ran the marathon, but congratulations to him for that. But I would just say, I think the Shadow Minister happens to be the only person in Aberdeenshire who is against investment in his community. And while honourable members on this side voted to deliver investment through Great British Energy, not jobs in the headquarters, but through the investment that it makes in supply chains and innovation in his city, he voted against it, and he'll have to answer to his own constituents for that.
Douglas McAllister.
Number 9, please, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Nuclear power is a critical part of our clean power ambitions. We are making strong progress on Sizewell C, and Great British Nuclear is driving forward its small modular reactor competition. We've also seen the Nuclear Regulatory Task Force set up by the Prime Minister, and we are ending the legacy of no new nuclear being completed in the 14 long years the party opposite were in power.
Douglas McAllister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The transition to net zero is a chance to create decent, high-skilled jobs for the future. This includes the next generation of small nuclear reactors, which could revolutionise our energy market and deliver cleaner, affordable energy. The SNP have vetoed nuclear energy projects in Scotland for almost 20 years, determined to leave Scotland behind. Can I ask the Minister, is Scotland missing out on the economic opportunities nuclear offers?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for the question, and I should say planning matters, including the siting of new nuclear, are devolved to the Scottish Parliament, and it's rightly for them to decide. But I will agree with my honourable friend that Scotland is missing out on the huge potential of new nuclear if the ideological block introduced by the SNP was lifted, and billions of pounds could be invested in Scotland with the countless skilled jobs that go along with it. And of course, this could well be delivered next year if a government is elected that takes the industry and opportunity of Scotland seriously and delivers those well-paid skilled jobs by electing a Scottish Labour government.
Ynys Medi.
Data from the last year showed that Ynys Môn had seen a drop of 57% in jobs linked to the nuclear industry, the worst of the UK constituency. Despite Wilbur being recognised as the best site for new nuclear in Europe, we've seen no developments from the last government. Can the Secretary of State and the Minister please give us that recognition and that acknowledgement that Wilbur needs new nuclear and that it is going to be seen in the near future?
Well, the Honourable Lady has raised this point and the wider question about energy jobs in her constituency with me a number of times, and I thank her for that and the way that she does it. Wilver is an important site, and it continues to be one that we're considering as a government. We're taking forward these decisions in due course. But as I've said to her, I think, on a number of occasions before, we are committed to delivering the jobs that go with this, and Wilver remains a really important site.
James White.
Number 10, please, sir.
Minister.
Industrial energy prices doubled under the previous government, and industry suffered just like consumers did when the wholesale prices rocketed at the start of the Ukraine war. The best way to secure bills for the long term for industry as well as for consumers is to deliver clean power by 2030. The truth is that the Tories ran down our energy infrastructure just like they ran down our road, our rail and our public services. We are rebuilding that infrastructure, making it more secure for the long term, less reliant on foreign dictators, giving us energy independence, good jobs and cheaper bills.
James White.
Growing the economy needs cheaper energy, but INEOS's chief executive has warned that Labour's crippling carbon taxes and other levies threaten UK manufacturing and make us more reliant on imports. So when will ministers start listening and realise that their dogma-driven energy policy is costing jobs, investment, and actually act to make our electricity prices more competitive?
As UK Steel said recently, the main driver of the price disparity is the wholesale electricity costs driven by the UK's reliance on natural gas. The best way to secure bills for the long term is to deliver clean power by 2030, and that is what we are doing.
Tom Hayes.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Green jobs are great jobs, and I welcome the £43 billion of private investment in clean energy since the election of Labour to government. So we bring down our industrial energy prices further. What steps will the government take to get us onto clean energy that we control and off fossil fuels in the control of dictators?
My honourable friend is right to point out the huge amount of private sector investment that is coming in with clean energy. It's why in the industrial strategy, clean energy is one of those growth-driving sectors where we've seen 10% growth in the economy. We're seeing hundreds of thousands of jobs, which the party opposite seem now determined to oppose. We will introduce the clean energy of the future. It's why we're pushing for the clean energy by 2030. That will bring down bills, it will give us energy security, and it will create really good quality jobs.
Number 12, please, Mr Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I should just say, before I answer her substantive question, she smashed to smithereens the record held by a female MP before, and huge congratulations to her for that in the marathon on Sunday. Great Britain has a highly resilient energy network with diverse sources of supply. The National Energy System Operator can balance the system in a wide range of scenarios, including potential disruptions to offshore infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The UK currently has about 15 gigawatts of offshore wind capacity, which supplies about 17% of our energy. In order to reach the government's 2030 targets, this is going to have to increase by 3 times to 40 to 50 gigawatts in just 5 years. To achieve this, we're going to have to rely on Chinese wind infrastructure and technology. What specific risk assessment has the government carried out into the impact of this reliance and exposed vulnerability on China for what will be such a significant amount of our energy supplies?
Well, I'm not going to comment on individual investment cases, but clearly in every single case we make an assessment, as the government does, and we look at the national security implications very seriously, just as the party opposite did when they were in government. But I would just gently say that the reason the supply chains in this country are as weak as they are is because they were underfunded and underinvested for years by the party opposite. There could have been a decision at the point where the party opposite took very ambitious steps to move towards clean power, to build the supply chains here, but they chose not to, and to tow things into our waters instead. We're reversing that, but it can't happen overnight.
Question 15.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, at the 2024 autumn budget, £1.8 billion was allocated to local authorities and social housing providers in order to support them to deliver warmer, more efficient homes across the country, targeting low-income households in particular. This goes alongside our plans to raise standards in rented properties so that both private and social renters are able to live in cold homes that aren't drafty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to see the government's commitment to provide thousands of lower-income households with energy-efficient upgrades. It couldn't have come sooner for my vulnerable constituents who are living in housing estates with outdated energy systems that sometimes leaves them without hot water and heating for months on end. And whereas Camden Council, which I know the Minister knows the authority well, has plans to upgrade the energy efficiency of these estates, in many cases it just doesn't have the resources to replace the heating system with heat pumps, which would lower bills and carbon emissions even further than right now. So could I ask the Minister, what assurances is she going to give me that local authorities will be given the support necessary to deliver the energy upgrades to the highest possible level?
My honourable friend makes a very important point. Local authorities will have an absolutely critical role to play in our Warm Homes plan. Under our Warm Homes schemes, we're offering substantial support in order to enable low-income households to transition to clean heat. So our Warm Homes Social Housing Fund, for example, allows grant recipients to receive an additional £7,500 clean heat upgrade. Under our Warm Homes Local Grant, £15,000 is being provided on top of the baseline in order to enable all households, particularly low-income households, to benefit from clean heat.
I know how on top of her brief the Minister is, so can she confirm that fewer than a third of council homes had an EPCC in 2010 compared to over 70% by last year? That fewer than 12% of homes in the UK had decent insulation in 2010 when Labour last left office, and when the right honourable gentleman, chuntering from a sedentary position, was in power. Less than 12% and more than 50% by the time we left office. Can she commit to a faster rate of improvement under this government than we ever saw in the previous Labour one?
Mr. Speaker, look, I welcome the honourable member's commitment to our plans to upgrade homes. I think he is, however, trying to rewrite history, because when we look at the record of the last government, there were many failures, but the most abject and egregious of those was the failure to insulate enough homes in order to make sure those households were insulated from price rises. That is the legacy the party opposite left over. That is a legacy we are determined to turn around, and that is why we're committed to upgrading millions of homes across the country.
John Hopkins.
Question 16, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
The National Wealth Fund has an absolutely critical role to play alongside Great British Energy in driving investment and jobs into clean energy industries. The National Wealth Fund is already making great progress, including participating in the latest round by Geopura, a UK-based green hydrogen pioneer, as well as supporting critical minerals in Cornwall as part of our mission for clean power by 2030.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Our Labour government is driving economic growth in Luton and Bedfordshire through its support for the sustainable expansion of Luton Airport and the exciting new Universal Studios. Does the Secretary of State agree with me that we need to ensure these positive developments are matched with incentivising investment in renewable energy to ensure our pursuit of growth contributes to meeting our climate commitments?
I thank my honourable friend for her question. Of course, this government welcomes the plans to invest in and around Luton, including the expansion of Luton Airport and the incredibly exciting Universal theme park, which is in the perfect site, as the President said. It also has perfect MPs. These projects, along with the massive clean power investments we are delivering, will grow the economy and will also deliver direct benefits to communities which host vital clean power infrastructure, which will take all of us off the fossil fuel market roller coaster.
Angus Martin.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The domestic user of electricity is paying 24p per kilowatt. The domestic user of mains gas is paying 6p. So if you live in urban Britain, you are buying your energy for a quarter of the price if you live in rural Britain. This is a massive problem, and I wonder if you can explain how you're going to address that.
Yes, can I thank the honourable gentleman for that question, not quite about the National Wealth Fund, but he's right to highlight the cost of electricity prices, and this is a challenge for industry. It's a challenge that we inherited from the previous government. The best way to bring those bills down is to secure clean power by 2030, but he is right to highlight the challenges, and that's what we're trying to fix.
Right, we come to topicals. Marcus Campbell-Saberts.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Topical question 1.
Okay, sorry, I was a bit premature there, Mr Speaker. Last week, Mr Speaker, 60 governments and more than 50 global businesses gathered in London for the first global summit on the future of energy security with the IEA. What I heard from country after country was the hard-headed case for clean energy's role in delivering energy security to free us from the global fossil fuel markets controlled by petrostates and dictators. And I also heard, Mr Speaker, from so many clean energy businesses that Britain was the place they wanted to invest because of the clarity and speed of this government's mission.
Marcus Campbell-Saberts.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Homes in rural areas experience some of the highest rates of fuel poverty in the UK, with rural properties being less energy efficient than the national average. Many are simply harder to insulate. Can the Minister confirm that my constituents in Penrith and Solway will see the additional challenge of rurality reflected in the government's ambitious warm home plans?
100%, Mr Speaker. My honourable friend is absolutely right about this. It's something that the Minister of Consumers and I often discuss, which is we've got to make sure in our Warm Homes plan that it takes account of the particular needs and the particular challenges facing rural areas.
So, Shadow Secretary of State Andrew Bell.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Voters feel they're being asked to make financial sacrifices when they know that their impact on global emissions is minimal. Present policy solutions are inadequate and therefore unworkable. The current approach isn't working. Any strategy based on either phasing out fossil fuels in the short term or limiting consumption is a strategy doomed to fail. Tell me, does the Secretary of State agree with his former boss, Tony Blair?
Well, he's talking about the TBI Institute report, which actually says, there's a lot in it I do agree with. It says on CCS we should move ahead, which this government is. On AI and the role of AI, this government should move ahead, which we are. On nuclear, we should move ahead, which this government is doing. I have to say to him, though, I want to say to him that this is the man who said only 3 weeks ago, after his party dropped their net zero policy, look, and this is going to surprise people, Mr Speaker.
No, Secretary of State, no. We are on topical, so I don't need a full statement and going over it. Andrew Bowie will show you a good example of...
Looking forward to hearing what I said a few weeks ago, to be honest, Mr Speaker. But it's okay to admit when you're wrong, Mr Speaker. And as Tony Blair said yesterday, this is a strategy that's doomed to fail. So why can't he see what the GMB sees, what Tony Blair sees, that Clean Power 2030 is doomed to fail, and it's time for a change of approach?
It's not what the report says, Mr. Speaker, and he's talking absolute nonsense. And that was the point I was going to make, Mr. Speaker. And the point I was going to make is this. He said, look, nobody's saying that net zero was a mistake. Net zero in the round was the eminently sensible thing to do. Not my words, Mr. Speaker, but his own words. Now, some people say the Tory party today has only one policy. Actually, they have two: against net zero and for it in the shape of the honourable gentleman.
Amanda Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. North West Leicestershire has been at the forefront of industry for generations. Now, leading local companies like ABB are investing locally and focusing on energy efficiency, leading the way to net zero. A core part of this is apprenticeships. How will our government be encouraging apprenticeships in this sector to meet our net zero targets and support young people into good quality jobs of the future?
Minister.
The Office for Clean Energy Jobs is focused on developing a skilled workforce in core energy and net zero sectors critical to meeting our mission to make the UK a clean energy superpower. I and my right honourable friend are working closely with Skills England to assess skills needs and engaging with the Department of Education on apprenticeships and the wider growth and skills offer.
The Liberal Democrat spokesperson, Claire Young.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Following the publication of a Severn Estuary Commission report on tidal power, will the government bring forward a national policy statement to support tidal range energy, and will they publish a review of the opportunities available?
Well, I've had a number of meetings on this issue since coming into this role. Clearly, tidal could play an important part in our energy mix. We've been very clear that we're supportive in principle. The question I think that has to be answered is an evaluation of the cost benefit of that and the value for money that comes from that. But we're happy to continue to look at it in the future, and certainly as these projects develop and more detail comes forward, we'll take another look.
The Blash.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the government's view that nuclear power is essential to our clean power goals. Can the Minister outline to the House what steps his department is taking to ensure that the new nuclear can be built wherever possible across the country, including in my constituency of Hartlepool?
Well, my honourable friend asked a really important question, and new nuclear is absolutely part of the energy mix. That's why we announced really important reforms to the national policy statement. The last substantive one was based on the one I published as Energy Secretary in 2009. We've updated it in order to enable new nuclear to be built right across the country, including in his constituency.
Ms. Jarvis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The power outages across Spain, Portugal and the south of France are a stark reminder of how energy security is key to national security. It's vital that any government is alive to the risks to our national resilience. What steps has the government taken to ensure robust plans are in place in the event of power outages?
Well, the Honourable Lady asked an important question. Obviously, I was in touch with the National Energy System Operator yesterday following the events in Spain and Portugal. We were not affected by them as a country. This is something that NESO takes incredibly seriously, that my department takes incredibly seriously. I would also add, because there's been some comment on this, Mr. Speaker, we shouldn't jump to conclusions about what happened. Let's see what happened and the reasons for it, and then let's learn the lessons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last month it was a fantastic opportunity to welcome the Secretary of State to the Valiant factory in Derby, and also to learn of the incredible investment from Great British Nuclear, £1.8 million for solar panels. We know that, done right, the clean energy transition will support communities across the UK and thousands of new jobs. What steps is the Minister doing to ensure that Derby is at the heart of this opportunity?
Well, my honourable friend is absolutely right, because this clean energy transition is about creating jobs. And I was delighted to open the factory, creating 200 jobs, a 40 million investment, creating manufacturing cylinders for heat pumps. This is why this is an opportunity that this government is going to seize for Britain.
Lee Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Secretary of State thinks it's a good idea to fill our fields with solar panels at the cost of billions of pounds to the British taxpayer. I hate to break it to you, Mr. Speaker, but the solar panels rely on sunshine. So why is he supporting now a project to block out the sunshine?
The honourable gentleman never ceases to amaze me, and not in a good way, Mr. Speaker. Look, what I would say to him is this, and this is where, they've made their decision. I'm not sure what their position is, which is cheap, clean, homegrown power is the answer for Britain, because it gives us energy security, frees us from the petrostates and dictators. We're in favour of it. They're against it. Goodness knows where they are.
Cabret.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. EV sales growth is at risk of slowing down. Many private car and fleet owners would transition to EVs, but patchy provision of public charging for those unable to charge at home and inadequate power capacity for rapid charging on our strategic road network for long-distance drivers are two key reasons for reluctance to buy EVs. What discussion are DESNZ ministers having with power networks, charging providers and Department for Transport to address this?
Can I just say to the Honourable Lady, I have a lot of members I need to get in. It is topicals, they're meant to be short and punchy. Minister.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for the question. She's right to point out that the importance of public charge points are critical. That's why the regulator Ofgem allocated £22 billion over the next 5 years to maintain and upgrade this. I've had a number of meetings with network operators around this question, and I work closely with my colleagues in the Department for Transport to make sure we're rolling out more.
Forgive me, Mr. Speaker. My constituents in Eaton and Walton continue to face higher electricity bills, amongst the highest in the country, approximately £961 per year. One of my local hairdressers tells me that their electricity has gone up from £150 to £450 a month. So will the government commit to bolder policies in easing restrictions on solar and wind power and driving investment for renewables to help struggling businesses?
Well, the honourable gentleman is, the honourable lady, sorry, the honourable lady is absolutely 100%, I was thinking of you, Mr. Speaker, the honourable lady is 100% right about this, because actually clean homegrown power is the answer, so it's an unequivocal yes.
No law. Speaker, industrial communities like St Austell and the Clay Country have been stifled in recent years by soaring energy costs. Yeah. So what steps is the Secretary of State taking to ensure that industries like the proud China clay industry are internationally competitive?
Well, my honourable friend is absolutely right about this. This is a long-standing issue around industrial energy prices. And look, absolutely key to this is getting off the roller coaster of fossil fuel markets. Because just like family finances were ruined in the cost of living crisis, so is the same in relation to business finances and public finances. This is absolutely an essential part of the answer.
Susan Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my constituency of Mid-Dumbartonshire, many elderly and disabled people face very high energy bills due to essential medical equipment and heating needs. What support is the government providing to ensure that these households are protected from the high cost of electricity?
Mr. Speaker, we know that consumers are under pressure with energy bills. That's why last winter £1 billion of support was provided to help vulnerable customers through our Warm Homes discount and through industry. That is why we are extending the Warm Homes discount from 3 million households to 6 million households, and that we're doing ongoing work to make sure that we are supporting the most vulnerable households with bills.
Speaker, next week I'll be visiting the site of a proposed project in my constituency that will create the only new interconnector between Great Britain and France that can be built and operational by 2030 to help deliver the government's clean power mission. Ahead of the proposed French-UK summit this summer, will the Secretary of State meet with me to discuss how to expedite conversations with our French counterparts so that we can move forward with this important project?
My honourable friend raises a really, really important issue about interconnectors. It's something that particularly in relation to France, it's something that I've been talking to the regulator about, and indeed my French counterpart, Marc Ferracci, who was in London for our International Energy Summit, and I'm happy for us as a department to engage with her and to tell her about the work we're doing on this.
Jerome May.
During the last general election, the current Secretary of State repeatedly promised my constituents that if they voted Labour, their energy prices would be reduced by £300. Not up to £300, but £300. Will the Secretary of State now repeat that promise at the dispatch box?
We said we would cut bills by up to £300, and that is absolutely what we are determined to do in relation. And he says they've gone up, Mr. Speaker, but let me just give him a little basic lesson here. The reason they've gone up is we're exposed to fossil fuel prices, and the only way to bring them down is clean, homegrown power we control.
Rachel Blake.
Thank
Mr. Speaker, the Pimlico district heating undertaking was built in 1950, the first ever district heating network in the UK. It used to be cutting edge, now it's in desperate need of replacement for my constituents to have new heating and hot water. Will the government work with local authorities like the Labour Council, Westminster City Council, to make sure that all the costs of a replacement don't necessarily fall just on residents?
Mr. Speaker, Westminster City Council owns the network, and we know that they are considering options to refurbish it and potentially decarbonise it. Look, in the round, we are committed to working with district networks to do two things: to increase technical standards so that they are more efficient, but critically to properly regulate them so that we are protecting consumers from unfair prices.
Dr. Andrew Morrison.
When will the government decide whether or not to support the UK-Morocco power project?
Well, I know the honourable gentleman has an important interest in this project. We continue to be in discussions with X-Links, and obviously we're happy to brief him on those continuing discussions.
Okay. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I just say, unlike the members opposite, I really welcome the £200 million investment last week for constituencies like mine in Stafford, Eccleshall and the Villages that develop some of the key technology to offshore wind. It's going to be integral for creating the good jobs of the future. With that in mind, may I please ask the Minister and the Secretary of State to come visit my constituency to see GE Vernova and the hard work they're doing?
Yes. Yes is the answer, Mr. Speaker. I look forward to it, and my honourable friend is 100% right about this. This is about the jobs of the future. They might want to turn their back on them. We won't.
Sir Julian.
While we need some oil and gas while on the road to a clean energy economy, does it not make sense to produce our own rather than importing it from other countries and thus increasing the global carbon footprint?
Well, we have a consultation that has just closed on the question on the future of energy in the North Sea. We've been very clear that our manifesto commitment was not to issue new licences to explore new fields, but we will manage existing fields for the entirety of their lifespan, and that's what we will do.
Helen Neal.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. MPs across the Humber region are united in their support for the Viking CCUS project. Can the government give an update of any progress on Track 2 programmes?
Just as in relation to Acorn, we think Viking is a really, really important project, Mr. Speaker. I'm very proud we made the progress we did on Track 1, and we're obviously looking at both Viking and Acorn as part of the spending review.
Tim Farrell.
Mr. Speaker, will the Secretary of State ensure that GB Energy has a focused plan to deliver and help farmers in my constituency, 1,500 of them, to tap the energy, Lake Leman energy, in their becks and their rivers to make sure that we can support farming, but also support the battle against climate change?
Well, the right honourable gentleman makes a very important point about the role that local community energy can play, which I think is what he's alluding to. We're committed to doing that. Great British Energy Local has already made some announcements in this space, including in the local energy funding in England. We'll have much more to say in due course, but we want that to be a partnership. So perhaps if he could write to me, I'll make sure that gets to GB Energy.
The SNP celebrated the closure and demolition of the Longannock coal power station in my constituency without a plan for its future, with the former First Minister herself pressing the button on the charges. Can I ask what conversations he plans to have with the site owner Scottish Power regarding the future of the site, and what role there might be for the UK government that will bring investment and jobs to my constituency?
Well, my honourable friend's right to make the point around Longannock. We have a number of conversations with Scottish Power, including about this, but I would just say to him that he again emphasises the important role that nuclear could play in Scotland in the future. It obviously is an important site to look at for a range of different things, but if the ideological ban on nuclear by the SNP was lifted, we could look at other opportunities for sites like this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When I was at the Scotland office, I was regularly lobbied by retired senior executives from the electricity industry about their concerns about how long it would take to reboot the network in Scotland if there was a major outage. Obviously, I sought the necessary assurances from those running the network. But in light of what's happened in Spain and Portugal, I would be more reassured if ministers resought those reassurances.
This is something that my honourable friend the Minister and I obviously discuss. It's one of the first duties of government, so I want to reassure the honourable gentleman is not only is this a focus for government, but we will look at what happened in Spain and Portugal and see if there are any lessons to be learned about our resilience.
James Nish.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the chair of the Fusion Energy APPG, I know that fusion technology not only has the potential to create thousands of jobs, but could also be the answer to our long-term clean energy security plan. Does the Minister agree with me that support for fusion is a good example of the government crowding in private sector investment, creating jobs and winning investment for places like the East Midlands?
Yeah.
Definitely.
The honourable member is a real champion for his constituency and for the benefits that fusion, the development of fusion will bring to it. We continue to invest, we continue to have discussions with international counterparts. I think there's a very bright future for fusion and for his constituents as a result.
Seamus Logan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister will be aware of the switch on of Murray West offshore wind farm at Buckie in my constituency last week, creating jobs, delivering clean energy and helping our nations achieve net zero. Does the Minister accept, though, that the current transmission charging regime poses significant and immediate threats to investment in offshore wind in Scotland? And will he agree to meet with me and industry representatives to explore this matter further?
Well, we were delighted to switch on the wind farm. I think the Secretary of State for Scotland was there to push the button last week. It's a fantastic example of the potential for offshore wind. Of course, I'm happy to meet the honourable gentleman. I have already, and it was a very enjoyable conversation. Very happy to talk about it. The REMA process that we're going through at the moment will, of course, look at questions of transmission charges as part of that. It's an important conversation. I'm happy to speak to him about it.
Whereas, Mr. Speaker, the United Kingdom was particularly susceptible to international gas prices during the energy crisis, and bills and prices soared as a result. Under this government, GB Energy is installing solar panels in hospitals in my Camborne-Redruth and Hale constituency. But can the Minister remind us which party it was that presided over the worst cost of living crisis in memory?
Answer right. Order! Mr. Moon, please. You won't get called again if you carry on like that. I'm sure the Minister will know the answer for you, Minister. Secretary.
I'm delighted to remind the House, Mr. Speaker, it was the party opposite that left us with energy insecurity, and we are never, ever going to leave this country vulnerable in the way they did again.
James McMurdo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As my honourable friend alluded to, there seems to be a three-point plan here. Point 1 to cover farmland in solar panels, and then point 2 to block out the sun. What's point 3?
I think what's the point of his party, I'd say, Mr. Speaker.
Lindy Chamberlain.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I've been contacted by several constituents who have experienced failed Eco4 scheme installations. What support is there for constituents when installations go wrong? Are rogue installers getting paid when work isn't completed properly? And what steps is he taking to address these failures?
Speaker, we are very aware of issues that we've had with Eco4 and GBIS. There is a clear redress mechanism, so if constituents have been affected, they should have received a letter from Ofgem. They should be able to contact their installer, who are required and obliged to fix the work, and then we've got a redress mechanism. But there's a wider point. We know that the system for quality assurance and consumer redress is not fit for purpose. We are determined to overhaul it.
Final question, Sammy Wills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the 1970s, global warmists wanted to put black dust on the Arctic to block the sun. Now the Minister wants to put black dust on clouds to block the sun again. Is his plan not bonkers? £50 million of taxpayers' money spent, which will only put up energy prices even further. He doesn't even know, Sammy.
Honestly, Mr. Speaker, I mean, this is like conspiracy theories gone mad. I mean, I feel like we've entered the sort of wacky world here. I mean, let us just focus on, keep our eyes on the prize here. We are vulnerable as a country because of our exposure to fossil fuels. This government has one mission and one mission alone, which is clean, homegrown power, so we take back control.
Right, that completes questions. Let the front bench change over. We now come to the urgent question. Gringa Singh, Jolsan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Minister make a statement on the killing of 26 people in Pahalgam, Kashmir, and the increasing tensions between India and Pakistan?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the horrific terrorist attack in Pahalgam in Indian-administered Jammu and Kashmir on the 22nd of April was devastating.
Because the Minister's on his feet replying.
The horrific terrorist attack in Pahalgam in Indian-administered Jammu and Kashmir on the 22nd of April was devastating. Our thoughts are with those affected, their loved ones, and of course the people of India. This attack left 26 dead, most of whom we understand were tourists travelling to the region. Following the attack, India has announced a number of diplomatic measures against Pakistan, and Pakistan has reciprocated. The official UK travel advice for Indian-administered Kashmir continues to advise against all travel to Jammu and Kashmir, except for travel by air to the city of Jammu, travel within the city, and travel within the Union territory of Ladakh. This is a very sensitive situation with real risks to regional and wider stability. Understandably, Mr. Speaker, there has been huge interest within UK communities. Kashmir has been a flashpoint for conflict between India and Pakistan at many times over previous decades. The Prime Minister spoke to Prime Minister Modi on the 25th of April to express his condolences on behalf of the British people. The UK condemns all forms of terrorism and the extremism that sustains it, wherever it occurs. The Foreign Secretary spoke to India's External Affairs Minister Jaishankar on the 27th of April to pass on the UK's condolences and to express the UK government's support to the Indian people at this difficult time. The Foreign Secretary has also spoken over the weekend to Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, Ishaq Dar. Heightened tensions between India and Pakistan inevitably raise concerns about escalation. Effective channels of engagement to safeguard stability in the region are essential. The UK supported the UN Security Council press statement on the 25th of April, which condemned the attack and reaffirmed that acts of terrorism are criminal and unjustifiable. The long-standing position of the UK is that it is for India and Pakistan to find a lasting resolution to the situation in Kashmir, taking into account the wishes of the Kashmiri people. It is not for the UK to prescribe a solution. We will continue to monitor the situation closely through our High Commissioners in New Delhi and Islamabad.
Thank you. Firstly, Mr. Speaker, can I thank you for allowing this question and the Minister for the statement. Three further points. Firstly, this is a terrorist attack of the utmost barbarity and it deserves to be condemned by all, and my thoughts are with the families of those killed. The killing took place in a popular tourist location where most victims were tourists. Among the victims was a man married only the week before honeymooning with his wife. The manner of the victim being selected was particularly horrific, with the killers actively seeking out non-Muslims before killing them in cold blood. The Minister will be aware the Kashmir region has been the scene of previous terrorist attacks, claiming many innocent lives, including in Chitin Singhpur, where 35 Sikhs were killed in the year 2000. What support can the UK provide to ensure that the terrorists are found and brought to justice and to ensure their networks of support are dismantled? Secondly, there has been a significant escalation of tensions between India and Pakistan, including the measures which the Minister has outlined. India and Pakistan have engaged in large-scale military hostilities in the past in this region, and there is a real risk that the nation could revert to military conflict again. So what can the UK do to encourage the de-escalation of tensions whilst ensuring the eradication of the terrorist organisations and their networks, support networks wherever they exist? And finally, the Secretary of State will be aware the Minister will be aware there have been protests in the UK outside the Indian and Pakistan High Commissions, which have been characterised by provocative language and gestures, including what appears to be a throat-slitting motion by an alleged Pakistan official. There have also been windows smashed at the Pakistan High Commission in London, and an individual has been arrested and charged. So does the Minister agree, recognise the importance of proactive work with communities across the UK to ensure that we do not see a downturn in community relations here in the UK?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable friend for his engagement on these questions. I'm sure the whole House shares with him the horror at the details of this incident, the targeting of the victims and the way it was carried out. Let me say first about the scenes on UK streets. Firstly, we are aware of reports of the video that my honourable friend refers to. The police, the Metropolitan Police are investigating, so I won't provide any further commentary on that particular incident, but it is obviously concerning. We take our responsibilities under the Vienna Convention for the security of all embassies and indeed High Commission, so both the Pakistani and Indian High Commission will receive all of the support of the UK state to ensure that they stay safe. As my honourable friend has said, and I know many in this House feel, these issues have long been discussed with passion on British streets, and we call on all sides, all community leaders, all involved, to call for calm at a time of tension in the region.
Shadow Foreign Secretary, Dame Pretty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for Smethwick for securing the question, and also my honourable friend, the member for Harrow East, for the support he's given to India, because he also tabled a question today too on this. Mr. Speaker, my condolences, thoughts and prayers are also with all those affected by this murderous, violent terrorism that has taken place in Faglam. And I recognise for India and the diaspora communities in the UK in particular, this has been a really difficult week. This was an act of terrorism, and we should call it out for exactly for what it is. And it is part of a long-standing pattern of attacks on civilians, visitors to the region, and also minority communities. And the UK must always stand with our friends during times of this nature. We have a series of long-standing security and counter-terrorism partnerships with India going back to the New Delhi Declaration in 2002 and the India-UK Strategic Partnership in 2016, the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership announced in 2022 and the UK-India 2030 roadmap agreed under the last government. So under that, security issues have been absolutely watertight, which is why we must be always in lockstep with our friends in India. So can the Minister tell us what information the UK government has on those responsible for carrying out these terrorist attacks? Does the government believe that Lashkar-e-Taiba, the terrorist group prescribed in the UK, bears responsibility? Is the government aware of any cross-border links to Pakistan of the perpetrators of this terrorist act? And given that attacks seem to take place at the same time when high-profile US politicians visit India, this is not the first time, has the government got a view on whether this is a coincidence, or does it demonstrate a pattern of targeted and deliberately timed attacks? We know the Prime Minister spoke to Prime Minister Narendra Modi last week, but has the UK provided any specific support in response to this terror attack and taken any practical steps to assist our friends in India? Mr. Speaker, has the government undertaken an assessment of the security implications of this attack on the UK? If Lashkar-e-Taiba or a front linked to them are responsible, then there are disturbing reports emerging that this terrorist group may have had engagement with Hamas. Has the government made assessment of the relationship between groups causing terror and destabilisation in Kashmir and those pursuing violence and terrorism that threaten our interests and global peace and security? Can the Minister give an update on the actions being taken to prevent tensions from escalating to communities in the UK, including protections of the High Commission, which has already been mentioned? And will the UK leverage its influence in easing tensions between India and Pakistan?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Right Honourable Lady for her questions. India is a friend to the UK, and we have been clear in the depth of our friendship in our response to this incident. She wouldn't expect me to comment in detail on intelligence and security matters in relation to this attack, but I can assure her that we are looking very closely. And she's right, terrorism, wherever it is found in the UK, is a threat to global peace and security. I won't comment further on this dispatch box on links between some of the groups that she mentioned, but I can assure her that our security agencies take these matters very, very seriously, as she would expect. She asks important questions about the Indian High Commission. As I said in my earlier answer, we will offer our full support. They have 24/7 enhanced protection outside the High Commission, and it will be a top priority for the government to ensure that no harm comes to any Indian diplomats or indeed any other diplomats here in the UK. We are playing our role to try and ensure that the tensions do not escalate. We are many of us in this House are familiar with the tense and storied history between the two countries. We are friends to them both, and we do not want to see uncontrolled escalation in tensions.
Calder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I pay my respects to those who have lost loved ones in the horrific terrorist attack in India-administered Jammu Kashmir. My thoughts are with them at this devastating time. Many of my constituents have written to me about the escalation of hostilities here in the UK. So can the Minister say what conversations he's having with India and Pakistan counterparts to address this?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this escalation is unsettling for communities within the UK. Both British Pakistanis and British Indians are valued parts of our community, but we look to all community and faith leaders to spread a message that now is a time for coming together across religious and ethnic differences, not to play out the tensions between two states on the streets of the UK, and we will continue to make that message.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me start by associating myself with the comments already made, reflecting on the grief of the communities torn apart last week. Tuesday's horrific murders were utterly devastating. Those responsible must face the full weight of the law. The escalation of tensions between India and Pakistan are alarming, as are reports of incidents of fire being exchanged by soldiers at the border and threatened to destabilise the entire region. What's vital now is that leaders in both countries commit to an open dialogue and wider efforts to de-escalate. We hope this includes India committing to reinstate the Indus Waters Treaty, the suspension of which threatens water access for Pakistanis, and Pakistan reopening the airspace to Indian-owned airlines. The UK must engage with both governments and encourage a return to dialogue and a retreat from retaliatory action, ensuring that decisions taken in the wake of Tuesday's horrific attack do not endanger more lives. So can the Minister confirm what conversations he has had with officials in New Delhi on reinstating the Indus Waters Treaty and with officials in Islamabad on reopening its airspace?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it is vital that effective channels of engagement to safeguard stability in the region exist, and we're encouraging both parties to that effect. There has been a lot of speculation about the diplomatic measures that have been announced so far. As we understand it, international agreements are in abeyance rather than being rescinded. And of course, in the long term, the proper functioning of water management in the Indus water catchment area is absolutely vital for both sides of the line.
Imran Hussain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The whole House is united in its condemnation of the horrific attack killing 26 people in Pahalgam, Kashmir, which has been rightly condemned by all in the region, and we must now see a full and independent investigation where those responsible are brought to justice. Mr. Speaker, the response by the Indian government has been somewhat concerning, with the unilateral action taken to revoke the Indus Waters Treaty risking the lives and livelihoods of millions in Pakistan. We are now also hearing reports of crackdowns in Kashmir, 1,500 people rounded up by police and bulldozer tactics on households. Hardline groups have issued statements promising reprisal attacks, death threats and action against every Muslim in India. Mr. Speaker, Kashmir continues to be a flashpoint between the two nuclear neighbours. So does the Minister agree with me that the international community must now seriously focus on de-escalation and long-term peace in the region? And can he also set out what the government is doing to ensure that Kashmiris do not face further persecution or oppression?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this is clearly a time of heightened tensions which inevitably invites concern both in the region and here in the UK. We are, as I said, engaged with both states in order to try and find the most effective way that both this terrible incident can be prevented from ever repeating, but also to ensure continued stability in the region.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I asked for a statement this week on this particular issue at Business Questions last week. So I'm grateful to you for making sure that there is a statement through an urgent question. The reality of this terrorist attack, which was well organised, well coordinated, was, despite the Minister's words, these 26 men who were murdered systematically by being shot in the head were either Hindu or Christian. And there was a deliberate Islamist attack on those tourists who were just going about their business in a peaceful manner. These terrorists were well equipped, they were well coordinated. And the sad reality is this: whilst the government may give expressions of condolences and support for the people of India, the fact remains that the terrorist bases that exist along the line of control in the illegal part of Kashmir, illegally occupied by Pakistan, still continue to operate across that line of control. So will the government now commit to full support for India in apprehending the terrorists responsible and bringing the backers of those terrorists to justice as well, and take all steps to support the erosion and elimination of terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member has come to have an argument, but I'm not sure which part of the statement he didn't like. We should not, until the investigation is concluded, we should not speculate on the nature of the attack. I will tell the honourable gentleman we will do everything that we can to ensure that those who committed this horrific attack are brought to justice, and India will have our support in that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I share the comments made in this House, horrified by this terrorist attack, and my thoughts are with the families and the victims and those in India. We've seen some really worrying scenes play out in London, as the Right Honourable Member for Smethwick mentioned. We cannot let this escalate onto UK shores. All of us bear responsibility to help de-escalate tensions. What steps is the UK taking to support international bodies, especially the United Nations, on its calls for de-escalation in tensions?
Minister. Mr. Speaker, as I said, we've spoken at the at senior levels to both states, and we have made clear the importance of maintaining stability in the region at this time.
Abdul Hussain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to echo the words of condemnation over the horrific terror attacks in Pahalgam, taking the lives of 26 innocent tourists, and I express my heartfelt condolences to all those that have been affected. Mr. Speaker, the rapid escalation of events following this tragedy have been deeply worrying. India's unfounded claims against Pakistan is a dangerous and irresponsible reaction to the tragedy suffered in Kashmir. The unilateral and illegal decision to suspend the Indus Water Treaty threatens to cut the lifeline of 200 million people in Pakistan, and it cannot stand. Mr. Speaker, I ask the Minister to join me in expressing concern over the knife-edge position these two nations are at, and express a call for an adherence to the guidance set under international bodies of law, as well as a plea for the calming of the situation, which, if exacerbated, will have severe consequences spreading much further than that region alone.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think I've set out our views on the importance of stability in the region already this afternoon, and I agree with the honourable member that it will be critical for all actors and international partners to ensure the long-term sustainability of the Indus River system.
Bill Brettle.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker, and I welcome the statement from the Minister today. In light of the awful terror attack in Indian-administered Kashmir, what work is the government undertaking to consult the Kashmiri diaspora here in the UK and identify their concerns?
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend for the question. Both the British Foreign Office and other parts of the UK government engage regularly with the British Kashmiri community, which are an important part of so many communities across the UK, and will continue to do so.
Julia.
I'm sure the government recognises that the strategic aim of this sort of terrorist atrocity is to provoke indiscriminate retaliation and undermine peaceful relations between neighbouring countries between which there may be some history of hostility. So will he impress on the Indian government the necessity of focusing on the actual perpetrators and not the wider community? And will he impress on the Pakistani government the importance in good faith of tracking down those responsible?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. Too much in the region I am responsible for, and indeed in this country we've seen terrorist attacks aimed in exactly the way the honourable gentleman describes, designed to try and provoke tension, intercommunal hostility and a breakdown of law and order. And it is important in this area, as is right across the world, that there is a proper law enforcement-led response based on a focus on the actual perpetrators, exactly as the gentleman.
That's sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I first add my condolences and thoughts and prayers to all of those victims of this heinous terrorist attack in occupied Kashmir. Many of my constituents, I have a large diaspora of Kashmir diaspora in my constituency of Bradford West, and many have reached out with deep concerns, following on from many have mentioned the Indus River Treaty. This is Pakistan has already been suffering from the effects of floods from years ago and not recovered from that. And in times of escalation and times of these troubles, it's in communities at large, be it India or Pakistan, that suffer. What message can the Minister give to my constituents to reassure them that the UK is doing all they can to de-escalate and bring things back to normal and bring those perpetrators to account?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are focused on holding perpetrators to account. I'm myself familiar with the acute natural disaster issues that face Pakistan. I was there myself in 2010 during the then disastrous floods, and I recognise the vital importance of the Indus River system both to India and Pakistan, and its vital cooperation between the two states in order to manage that vital system. I would say there is a lot of speculation about what has been decided and what has been agreed. As we understand it, diplomatic treaties are being held in abeyance, and there is still space for a long-term answer to some of these questions.
Luke Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As an officer of the APPG with British Hindus and with a considerable Indian-Pakistani community, I was particularly shocked and saddened by the news of the horrific murder of 26 people last Tuesday. I've received many emails from constituents raising their concerns. It is of particular worry that reports of Hindus and Christians being targeted. This race-based terror is unacceptable anywhere in the world. Please, can the Minister confirm what steps they are taking to encourage both India and Pakistan to investigate these terrible crimes, but also to ensure lines of communication are kept open to avoid a further escalation in conflict?
Minister.
We are encouraging direct lines of communication, and we are, of course, encouraging all Pakistani assistance to the investigation of these horrific crimes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I also associate myself with the comments made by the Minister and other colleagues in this House of condemning this innocent killing of 26 people? Now, with the tension between India and Pakistan running high and resulting in arrests, does the Minister agree with me, which is also, I think, a number of people have touched on this point, is that we must not let this issue boil over onto our streets? If anything, we should be working to ensure we get the message of peace and hope to that part of the world. Yeah. And in light of this tit-for-tat actions being taken by Pakistan and India, does the Minister further agree that we need to encourage an open, independent inquiry to establish the facts and ensure accountability and help restore calm? That is far better for this world than India and Pakistan nuclear powers going to war.
Minister.
My honourable friend is right, of course, that peace and calm it is vital for communities here and indeed across the world. The two states are talking to each other, which is welcome. It is understandable the concerns that India has for its own security in the light of such a horrific incident. It is clearly taking steps to try and establish the facts of this incident as best it can, and it will have British support to do so.
Sir Gavin Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Language is incredibly important at a time of such tragedy, and right across the House we all condemn this terrorist incident, but a number of constituents of mine have been particularly concerned about how the BBC described this as militants, as against describing it for what it is, which is a terrorist attack. Correct. Will the Minister use his position to make representations to the BBC to make sure that they understand about the important use of language?
Yeah. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I resist calls for ministers to police the BBC's language too much, but let me be clear. This was a horrific terrorist attack, and that is the view of the British government.
Oregano.
The Kargil incursion, the Chitty Singh Borough attack, the hijacking of Air India Flight 814, the attack on Gandhinagar, the attack on the Lok Sabha itself, the attack on the Taj Hotel in Mumbai, the suicide bomb attack at Pulwana that killed 44, now 26 tourists murdered at Pahalgam. Since you and I were first elected to this House, Mr. Speaker, we have that as just a short list of the Pakistan-based terror organizations' activities like Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Toiba and its derivatives like the Resistance Front. They destabilize international security between two nuclear states, and they cause unwarranted tension in community relations here. Is it not time to make the support that we give to Pakistan conditional on them finally dealing with and closing down the terrorist training camps that they harbour?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we expect all of our friends to work closely on the shared international scourge of terrorism. Pakistan herself has faced a series of deeply damaging terrorist attacks in recent months and years, and we press on them, as we do all of our allies in the region, to take the steps necessary both to investigate the terrorist threats which they face them, but also those that face their neighbours.
Ayab Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I share the sentiments echoed by all honourable members in this House? And rightly so. It is crucial to condemn unequivocally all forms of violence, irrespective of its source, and our thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their families. The recent incident is a stark reminder of the fragile peace that hangs by a thread in this region, a region that has suffered too long from recurring cycles of violence. The intricate history of Kashmir requires a diplomatic approach underpinned by international cooperation. Does the Secretary of State agree with me that the UK's role as a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council must be to encourage and support efforts that prioritise dialogue and reconciliation between India and Pakistan? And would he further agree that the law-abiding people of Kashmir deserve to live in peace and security without the shadow of perpetual conflicts, and this will only be achieved if they have the right to self-determine?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, of course, the people of Kashmir, both Indian administered and Pakistani administered, do have the right to live in safety, and we want to see that right exercised. Of course, there must be dialogue between India and Pakistan at this time of heightened tensions, but I would say that India does also have the right, in the face of such a horrific attack, to investigate, to find the perpetrators, and to hold them to justice for these terrible crimes.
Reginald Hopkins.
Mr. Speaker, a number of my constituents in Luton South and South Bedfordshire have expressed their deep concern about the developments in Kashmir, and we all condemn the attacks and growing tensions in the strongest possible terms. Does the Minister agree with me that advocating for a peaceful resolution in Kashmir is also part of maintaining community cohesion in the UK, given so many of us have constituents who have family members and friends in the region?
Minister.
I do, Mr. Speaker. Of course, the UK supports a peaceful resolution of the long-standing issues in Kashmir between India and Pakistan. It's a matter for the two countries, and we will support them in those endeavours.
John Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I join with members across the House in condemning this act of terrorism. But the honourable gentleman will know his party's manifesto pledge to pursue a new strategic partnership with India, and I welcome that. But could he explain to the House what steps are being made in regard to that pledge? Because it will be by concerted diplomatic efforts, but it will also be by leadership from the dispatch box around recharacterising our commitment to India, that people will gain strength from this government's response.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman to give me the opportunity to cast away any doubt that there might be. We stand with India in the face of this horrific attack. We have, at the very highest levels, been in direct contact with the Indian government. This is an absolutely atrocious incident, and they have our support in trying to bring those perpetrators to justice. I will leave it, if he will forgive me, I will leave it to the Minister responsible for India to provide an update to the House in slower time on the state of our relationship. It continues to grow from strength to strength.
Mohammed Jassim.
Speaker, in light of the recent tragic attack on civilians in Kashmir, which we all condemn, what step is the government taking to de-escalate tensions and to urge the governments of India and Pakistan to engage in a transparent and impartial investigation to establish facts, while also pushing for renewed diplomatic engagement to address all outstanding issues, including the core dispute of Kashmir, through meaningful dialogue and a commitment to peace that prioritises the lives and rights of all Kashmiris?
Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, we have been engaged with both governments. The long-standing position of the UK is that it is for India and Pakistan to find a lasting resolution to the situation in Kashmir. It must take into account the wishes of the Kashmiri people, and it's not for us to prescribe a solution. We will continue in those efforts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister has outlined the government's been in communication with both India and Pakistan and the risk of escalation. I'm wondering if the Minister can tell the House if the Foreign Secretary has been in communication with any other regional powers. I'm thinking specifically about China, about the situation and the risk of escalation.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, honestly, I haven't spoken to the Foreign Secretary in the last 24 hours, so I'm not totally sure, but I'll write to the member and let him know.
Debbie.
Mr. Speaker, and I'd also like to associate myself with the remarks about the condolences for the innocent families that have become victims themselves of this appalling attack. It's important that there is an evidence-based investigation, and I do hope that from what the Minister has said, Pakistan is assisting India in this, in identifying the perpetrators and ensure that they are brought to justice. Tensions are certainly high, both within India but also Pakistan. I appreciate the Minister's remarks as far as the assistance that is being provided at the moment, but can this be used as an opportunity to also look at the longer-term issues that Kashmir has faced for decades?
Mr. Speaker, I set out our position on the core disputes in Kashmir in the previous answer. I repeat that we do encourage the Pakistanis to cooperate fully with the Indian government in their efforts to investigate, and we hope that they will provide assistance. This obviously remains a time where they're of great heightened tension, so that direct dialogue is particularly important on these issues.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I also join the Minister and the members of the House in my unequivocal condemnation of this heinous and cowardly act of terrorist violence. My hearts go out to the families and the victims, and we stand in full solidarity with them, as well as the civilian populations of India, Kashmir, and wider Pakistan. As has been highlighted, the killings have heightened tensions in the subcontinent, and at present, both nuclear-armed countries, India and Pakistan, are on a war footing. The escalation in military action will have ramifications globally, especially in the UK, where reactionary bigots and far-right politicians are sowing divisions amongst British Kashmiris, Indians and Pakistanis. My Kashmiri diaspora and myself and my Indian family and friends would like to know what specific steps the UK government is taking to help de-escalate these heightened tensions in the region and the increased tensions within our borders.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, we are seeking to play our full diplomatic role to help manage the heightened tensions between India and Pakistan and the concerns of the region. And it is vital that here in the UK, all of us in positions of influence at a community level do everything we can to ensure that those tensions do not play out on British streets.
Deirdre Costa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Many of my constituents in Ealing Southall have contacted me in the last few days to register their horror at the appalling terror attack in Kashmir, and I join the Minister in condemning this unequivocally. Will the Minister confirm that the UK stands firm against terror in any form? And will he further confirm what steps this government is taking to support our long history of community cohesion in diverse constituencies of this country like Ealing Southall?
Minister.
I can, Mr. Speaker, confirm that we stand against terrorism in all of its manifestations, and we will be working closely with all communities, including through colleagues in this House, to try and address the concerns that are being raised.
Nick Timothy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the consequences of mass immigration and radical diversity at home is we see foreign conflicts play out between diaspora communities in Britain, and we should all do everything possible to stop this domestic disintegration, including drastically curtailing immigration. But will the Minister take this opportunity to tell members of this House who have played the politics of communalism to stop playing with fire?
Minister.
I think the Honourable Gentleman's question is, will I condemn the existence of British Indian and British Pakistani communities? No, I won't. There is tension between those communities, which I have called for calm. If he is asking me whether I think there has been too much immigration over the last 14 years, yes, indeed. I'm very welcome to take guidance from Mr. Speaker on what your question was.
Just Southwell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I thank the Minister for making this statement? And I'd also like to associate myself in the condemnation of this horrific and cowardly attack on innocent people. Ilford South is home to a large diaspora of Indian and Pakistani descent. Following the horrific murder of these 26 tourists, their only crime was being in the wrong place at the wrong time when the terrorists orchestrated their heinous attack. India points the finger at Pakistan, and Pakistan denies any involvement. Both are nuclear powers. What steps is the government taking to de-escalate this particular situation?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I have said, we've been engaged with both states extensively over the last few days, and we're taking all steps that we can in order to ensure that heightened tensions do not cause the risks of uncontrolled escalation.
Jones.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Many constituents in my constituency of Wokingham have been hit hard by the recent massacre in Kashmir. The perpetrators of the massacre must face the full face of the law. An open dialogue between India and Pakistan is now vital to avoid an escalation of tensions over Kashmir. How is the government working to support efforts of de-escalation and prevent cross-border exchanges from escalating into a full-blown conflict?
Minister.
I thank the Honourable Gentleman for his important question. We will continue to work with both states on the issues that he outlines in the way that I've described over the course of the afternoon.
Stella, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is our common humanity that unites many of us in this House in our condemnation of a terrorist act and our condolences to the families affected, whether they have community links to this country or not. And I hear what the Minister says, and I support entirely his call for an investigation. Many of us do.
What is troubling my British constituents who have family in the Kashmir region are the words of the Indian Defence Minister, who said that there would be a strong response in the coming days. Now, in previous crisis moments, we've had missile strikes, indeed, we've had airstrikes and special forces action from the Indian government. And we have seen an explosion in the last couple of days in anti-Muslim attacks in India as well. So what words of reassurance can the Minister offer my British constituents concerned about human rights around the world, concerned about family members, that this government will always speak up for innocent civilians wherever they may live and wherever they may find friends?
Minister.
My honourable friend makes important points. We do, of course, stand for human rights around the world. We will continue to work to try and address heightened tensions between India and Pakistan, and we will want to avoid a dangerous spiral of escalation in the region.
Joshua Reynolds.
Speaker, it's incumbent on us as an international community to engage with leaders on both sides. So can I ask the Minister specifically what he and the UK government have done so far to promote and ensure that an open dialogue stays open?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I say, we've spoken at a senior level to both governments and we're encouraging direct contact. We understand that direct contact is in place.
Paul Walker.
Speaker, my constituents in Rochdale, particularly those from the Kashmiri and Pakistani communities, strongly condemn this terrorist atrocity in Pahalgam. But they're also worried about India's response, and particularly its suspension of the Indus Water Treaty, but also the bulldozing of homes of those not connected to this attack in any way. So does the Minister agree with me that the Kashmiri people should not be subjected to collective punishment, just as the people of Palestine have in Israel?
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend for the question. As I hope has been clear in all of my answers, Mr. Speaker, a terrible terrorist attack has been perpetrated, and India has our full support in going after the perpetrators of that attack. We, of course, expect all of our partners to do that in accordance with their domestic standards and laws.
Sean.
Speaker, can I thank the Minister very much for his answers to the questions and for the calm way that he's replied. I think it's appreciated in this House. I travelled to that region some 4 or 5 years ago as chair of the APPG for freedom of religious belief. There was tension then, and there's greater tension now in every sense of the word. The slaughter of those tourists in that idyllic meadow in Kashmir can never be seen as anything other than pure, unadulterated evil. They killed people just simply because they were Hindus or they were Christians. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families who mourn their loved ones today. What steps can the Minister take to provide support for the government to deal with the terrorism, and how can we get the message to British citizens that they should under no circumstances whatsoever travel to that region?
Minister.
I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. I will reiterate our travel advice. We advise against all travel to Jammu and Kashmir, except for travel by air to the city of Jammu, travel within the city, and travel within the Union Territory of Ladakh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. People in India and around the world were horrified by the news of the terror attack last week, in which 26 innocent tourists were killed in Jammu and Kashmir, and my thoughts are with all those who've lost loved ones. This was an appalling attack aimed clearly at destabilising the situation in Kashmir. In my constituency, I have a large Pakistani, Indian and Kashmiri communities, and many people are now very, very concerned about an escalation of tensions in the region. How is the British government working with the Indian government to support in the wake of this terror attack? And what more can you say about the constructive role that Britain has to play in finding a diplomatic resolution?
Minister.
I know my honourable friend reflects the strength of feeling in her constituency, as there are in so many of the constituencies represented in this House. We will continue to play our full diplomatic role, and we welcome the efforts of her and many colleagues across this House to engage right across the spectrum of their constituencies.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Kashmiri community in Stoke-on-Trent will have condemned the appalling atrocities taking place last Tuesday, but that condemnation quickly turns to fear and anxiety about what that means for their friends and loved ones in both the India and Pakistani administered side of Kashmir. I've listened to the Minister's answers carefully about the Government's position that this is now an issue for India and Kashmir to resolve alone, and I welcome the actions the Government is taking to reduce tensions. But long term, the peaceful settlement for this community will need help. It will need international facilitation, as per the UN resolutions 39 and 47. If we want to see self-determination for the people of Kashmir, it's going to take more than warm words from Minister. So can he set out what actions he will take through the UN and through his counterparts in other countries to ensure that the path to peace is something that is started to be walked quickly?
My honourable friend is a doughty advocate for the concerns of his constituency. The long-standing position of the United Kingdom is that it is for India and Pakistan to find a lasting resolution to the situation in Kashmir, taking into account the wishes of the Kashmiri people. It is not for us to prescribe a solution.
Blackouts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like many colleagues in this House, I was appalled by the terrorist attack in Kashmir, and my heart goes out to the victims and their loved ones. One thing that really worries me now is the hatred and threats and incitement that we have seen online since then, and I know this is deeply unsettling for many of my constituents in Aylesbury. Does the Minister agree that the incitement of hatred online is completely unacceptable, and can he share what measures the Government is taking to monitor and act against this?
Mr. Speaker, we are aware of hatred being incited online in relation to events in the region. We condemn it utterly, and where the threshold is met for police action, it should be taken.
Christine Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I share the horror of this despicable act of terrorism inflicted on 26 innocent people, many of whom are on holiday. One young man was on his honeymoon. My condolences are with all those affected, but the ripples are widespread and felt by the global Indian community, including my constituents in Winchborough. They raised their concerns with me about this incident, but they're also really fearful of what happens next. So can the Minister give my constituents assurances that the Government will work with international partners to support peace and stability in the region, and that community cohesion will remain a top priority for this Government?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, India and Pakistan are our friends. We have historic connections to both states and communities right across the region. We will continue to be committed to regional stability, and of course, we call for calm in our own streets.
Adam Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I congratulate my friend from Smethwick for securing this urgent question, but I do say to the Minister that this really should have been a statement. We're all horrified by the act of terror that we saw just days ago and condemn it without equivocation. I've heard from many of my constituents in Newcastle and Lyme in recent days from both diasporas, and it's important to know that many people are feeling this act of terror deeply in my community and up and down the United Kingdom. Mr. Speaker, India and Pakistan are two very important members of the Commonwealth, so can the Minister specifically outline what engagement the British Government had with the Commonwealth to help reduce tensions?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if my honourable friend would like a statement, he can stay for 45 minutes and he'll get another one from me. We have been in direct contact with both India and Pakistan, and we will continue to do so.
Danny Beales.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Minister for his condolences and his strong condemnation of this horrific terror attack. I've been contacted, Mr. Speaker, by hundreds of families in my constituency over recent days who've been horrified about these events, and it's clear that the awful terror attack in Kashmir has sent shockwaves through the British Indian community and the global Hindu community more broadly. Overwhelmingly, Mr. Speaker, they speak of needing justice, and understandably so. And we all want to see peace, we all want to see de-escalation, but understanding that people will be held to account for these horrific crimes is vital to getting there. So I'd just like to press the Minister a bit more to be clear that the UK Government, when it stands with India, is doing all it can to identify who is responsible for these events and who supports and funds them, so they can be held to account and justice can be found. Thank you.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, of course, we want to see the perpetrators held to justice properly, and we will be supporting India to do so.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, Nick Timothy.
Thank you. Earlier, I asked the Minister to tell members of the House who play the politics of communalism to stop playing with fire. He not only failed to do so, but he attacked me for observing the undoubted tensions and sometimes even violence we see in this country as foreign conflicts play out here alone. Can you advise on whether the Minister can withdraw this attack, and if he simply misheard my question, to allow him to answer it now? This is a very serious issue indeed.
Minister, would you like to respond?
Mr. Speaker, as I understood the question, the honourable gentleman was suggesting that there had been too much immigration from presumably both India and Pakistan over the last period, and that was leading to communalism within constituencies across the country. This government... I'm seeking...
Is he going to carry on from a central position?
I have been absolutely clear from this dispatch box that I want to see no communal tensions in the UK. I've called for calm repeatedly. If the honourable gentleman is saying he believes too much immigration has led to these tensions...
Obviously, we're not going to get anywhere. Look, sit down, Minister. Can I just say I'm not responsible for the answers that the Minister makes. I'm sure that it won't rest at that, but for now it will rest, because we're now going on to the urgent question. I'm going to go to the urgent question with Mark Francois. Let the front benches clear, please. Right. Mark Francois, urgent question.
Thank you for granting this urgent question, Mr. Speaker. To ask the Secretary of State for the Home Department if she will make a statement on the alleged incitement to murder members of Parliament by the Irish Republican group NICA.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I thank the right honourable gentleman for his urgent question? Let us never forget that we lost two members of this House, Joe Cox and Sir David Amess, in tragic circumstances. Both Joe and Sir David were passionate advocates for their constituents who cared deeply about a range of issues and embodied the finest democratic qualities, traditions and values of this House. I know the thoughts of the whole House will be with their families today and every day. Now, Mr. Speaker, I want to reiterate the Home Secretary's words and fully condemn the comments that have been made. Remarks like these are dangerous and irresponsible, and this government utterly rejects the views expressed by this group. Let me be crystal clear. Political intimidation and abuse have no place in our society. Now, I know the House will want immediate answers on this issue, but as the policing minister said yesterday in relation to the urgent question on the Headingley case, the desire for immediate answers is often constrained by the obligation that we have as ministers and as members of this House not to do or say anything that will interfere with what is a live police investigation. As members know, the investigation and prosecution of criminal offences are a matter for the police and the Crown Prosecution Service to determine, and they are operationally independent of government. It is important that the police are allowed to carry out their ongoing investigations free from political interference. However, for the benefit of the House, let me recap what the Metropolitan Police have themselves said about these reports. We have been made aware of the video, and it has been referred to the Counter-Terrorism Internet Referral Unit for assessment and to determine whether any further police investigation may be required. Whilst I will not comment further on this specific case, the safety and security of members of this House and all those who serve in elected office is an issue to which I attach the utmost seriousness, as does the Home Secretary and as does Mr. Speaker. Elected representatives at all levels and across all parties must be able to perform their duties safely and without fear. And through the Defending Democracy Task Force, we are driving a whole-of-government effort to ensure that that is the case. The Task Force has recently agreed a programme of work to tackle the harassment and intimidation of elected members, and the Task Force is also supporting the Speakers' Conference, which is addressing these issues. Those of us who attend this place are all too aware of the devastating consequences of violence against our colleagues and friends. We may not always agree, but if there is one universal truth we would all subscribe to, it is surely that our politics is better when it is conducted respectfully and safely, and I hope and trust that that will have the support of members right across this House. Mr. Speaker, the Home Secretary and I condemn the comments that have been made, and we will work tirelessly to ensure the safety and security of all those who step forward to serve in public office.
Mark Francois.
Mr. Speaker, 2 MPs, Joe Cox and Sir David Amess, have been murdered within the last decade in the line of duty meeting their constituents. Frankly, sir, that could have been any of us. So I should like to ask the Home Secretary, albeit in absentia today, 4 very specific questions. 1, how long is this counter-terrorist police inquiry likely to take? The video plainly speaks for itself. How could the words, "kill your local MP," possibly have been taken out of context? 2, we now know NECAP applied for a £14,000 government grant during the previous Parliament, which was vetoed, quite rightly, by the Right Honourable Member for North West Essex. NECAP then appealed against this decision as discriminatory. The incoming Labour government concluded fighting the appeal would be not in the public interest. Can I ask the Home Secretary to tell the House which government minister approved that absurd decision to effectively surrender to NECAP over this, and why? 3rd, NECAP are still booked to appear at Glastonbury, the organisers of which incidentally received £1.5 million of taxpayers' subsidy over COVID. So does the Home Secretary agree it would be unconscionable for NECAP to appear, at least whilst the police inquiry is underway? NECAP should surely be barred today. To be crystal clear, does the government agree with that or not? Yes or no? Finally, NECAP have now offered a crocodile tears apology to Katie Amess. Haven't that family been through enough already? So as it's within the Home Secretary's gift, will she now seriously reconsider their request to examine potential failures by Prevent, which may have contributed to David's death, via the auspices of the Southport inquiry? Absolutely. Isn't that the least we could do? Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm genuinely grateful to the Right Honourable Gentleman for him bringing forward this matter, because I think it provides an opportunity to discuss these issues. It's something that I've been keen to do for some time. Let me firstly just gently say to him, he mentioned the name of the band on a number of occasions. I deliberately did not name them and will not name them. And it's for Right Honourable and Honourable Members to choose what language they would use. But my advice is not to give them any further publicity by naming them. I won't be doing so, and I suggest that other members don't either. Now, the Right Honourable Member spoke about the Home Secretary. Let me tell him what the Home Secretary said about this, because she said that this is a total disgrace. It's dangerous and irresponsible to say these sorts of things, and I hope that everybody involved, not just the band, but also those involved surrounding them and those involved in events, also take some responsibility on this and look very seriously at the consequences of these kind of remarks, not just what's been said. Let me just say to the Right Honourable Gentleman that I chair the Defending Democracy Task Force. The Home Secretary is the Home Secretary, and clearly she has overall responsibility, but the judgment is that I would be here as the person who chairs the task force. We both, of course, take it incredibly seriously. Now, the Right Honourable Gentleman asked about the length of the investigation. I know that he will understand that is not a matter for ministers, that is a matter for the Metropolitan Police. He also asked about the funding of the group. Now, let me just say to him again, gently and respectfully, that I don't agree with the characterisation of the case that he made with regard to the funding of the group. The truth of the matter is, and I did not raise this proactively, I'm only referencing it in response to his specific question about it. This is a situation that we inherited from the previous government. It's a scheme that we inherited, but it's also a situation that we inherited, because after approving the grant, they then U-turned on it being given, didn't take proper legal advice, ended up in a costly legal battle, which the then government lost. And obviously this government has a duty to bring that to an end and protect taxpayers' money. But we are deeply concerned about all of these things that have made up this case, and that is precisely why, and the Secretary of State for the Department of Culture, Media and Sport made this point yesterday, that we are now rightly taking the opportunity to review the scheme. The right honourable gentleman asked me about Glastonbury. Now, it's for the organisers of the festival to decide who appears. If the honourable gentleman will just be patient and listen to the entirety of my response, it is not for government ministers to say who's going to appear at Glastonbury. It's for the organisers of the festival. But there is, as I have said, an ongoing live police investigation. So the government would urge the organisers of the Glastonbury Festival to think very carefully about who is invited to perform there later this year. The Right Honourable Member, for reasons that I completely understand and I appreciate very much, mentioned the Amis family. And our thoughts and prayers continue to be with the Amis family, as they are with the family of Joe Cox. Now, as the House will be aware, because I've spoken about this previously, we have published the Prevent Learning Review to ensure that there is public scrutiny and transparency over the perpetrators' dealings with Prevent. We will also publish the finding from Lord Anderson's review. But the Home Secretary and I do want to make sure that every avenue has been explored, and that is why we will appoint a senior figure to scrutinise all of the previous reviews that have taken place to see if there are any questions that still need to be answered or issues that still need to be addressed. And we will act as necessary if any such gaps are identified as a result of that process.
David Burton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his statement today. And nobody but those in my constituency, and I'm sure in my honourable friend from Spen Valley's constituency, knows what it's actually like when somebody kills your MP. And the reverberations of that are still being felt in Southend at Western Lee 3.5 years later for the constituents, never mind the family of Sir David Amos, who will never recover from this. Does my honourable friend agree with me that those in the public eye, anyone in fact, but especially those in the public eye, should be careful with the words, because words have power and words can be incredibly dangerous, and we should, with all force, absolutely condemn the type of incitement that we have seen from this particular group. Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm very grateful to him for the remarks that he has made, not just today, but previously as well. I totally agree with the points that he's making. He's absolutely right that words do have consequences. And all of us, both inside and outside of this House, should treat others with respect and with dignity. And I completely join with him in condemning the words that have been used, and I give him and the House a categorical assurance that we will do everything that we possibly can to ensure the safety and security of all of those who serve in elected office.
Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Our thoughts today are with our dear friends Sir David Amos and, of course, Joe Cox. They were brutally murdered doing their job on behalf of their constituents on a surgery Friday. And tragically, they weren't the first MPs to be murdered. The crest of Erin Eve, of course, is up there above the door, alongside those of Sir David and Joe behind me. Those who incite the murder of MPs are attacking democracy itself. So, will the Minister join me in condemning unreservedly the despicable evil which NECAP represents in the appalling comments they made? Secondly, I would like to ask about the funding question. It was in November of last year, November 2024, that the Department of Business and Trade decided to end its support for the legal challenge, a decision which resulted in the band winning and becoming entitled to the money. Why did the government make that decision? In light of what we now know, will they appeal against that decision? And will the Minister, critically, make a categoric assurance from the dispatch box that this band will never, under any circumstances, receive public money again from any source, including the National Lottery and including Northern Ireland Screen? Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, this organisation has also expressed support for Hamas and Hezbollah, proscribed terrorist groups. Now, the Minister said he didn't want to comment on the police investigation at all, but of course the government did comment quite extensively on the investigations going on after Southport. So I would like him just to make clear, as the government did last summer, that they consider it in the public interest that the police do investigate, and if there is evidence, prosecute these offences or potential offences. Because if he's not willing to do that now, as the government did last summer, he does risk the perception of two-tier justice. Finally, I would like to say I met recently, very recently, with Sir David's widow, Julia, and his daughter, Katie, who bear, as the Minister can imagine, an enormous burden of grief. They want to make sure the lessons are learned from Sir David's murder. The perpetrator, as the Minister knows, had been in the Prevent programme previously, like the perpetrator in Reading and like the perpetrator in Southport. Julie and Katie Amis would like Sir David's murderer and the failings of Prevent to be looked at alongside the Southport case, which is being investigated, and indeed the Reading case as well. So please, will the Minister honour his memory by agreeing to that today?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm grateful to the Shadow Home Secretary for the remarks that he has made. He's right that when a threat is made to a member of this House or anyone who serves in elected office, it isn't just an attack on that particular individual, it is an attack on our democracy. That is precisely why this government, as did the last one, has placed so much emphasis and importance on the work of the Defending Democracy Task Force. He will know from his time in government that this is the fulcrum point that draws together all of the different bits of government and ensures that our response to the threats that we face is properly organised, that the resources are marshalled correctly and appropriately, and we make sure that we enable all of those who wish to serve in public life are able to do so without the fear of the kind of completely unacceptable attacks that we've seen in recent years. So I agree with him, and I hope that that is a matter on which that we can all be agreed. And I also agree with the points that he made about the remarks themselves. I'm not going to name the band, but I do reiterate what I've said previously, that the government unreservedly condemns the remarks that have been made. Now, he asked me specifically about funding. I gave in my earlier response, I think, a pretty detailed reply in terms of the sequencing of the funding that was agreed under the previous government. But he did ask me about future funding. So let me be clear with him and with the House. We don't think individuals expressing the views that we've heard should be receiving taxpayer funding. I think that is a non-controversial thing to say. And as the Secretary of State for DCMS said yesterday, officials are reviewing the music export growth scheme in light of the comments that have emerged. I'd also add, and he may or may not agree with this, I think that he probably will, that it does seem strange to me, and I'm sure to other members of this House, that a Republican group, seemingly opposed to the British government in the first place, would want to receive funding from it. I find that baffling, I have to say. Now, he mentioned prescription and Hamas and Hezbollah. Now, he will know very well that Hamas and Hezbollah are prescribed organisations. Once an organisation is prescribed, it is a criminal offence to belong to, invite support for, recklessly express support for, or arrange a meeting in support of a prescribed organisation. It is also an offence to wear clothing or carry articles in public or publish an image of clothing or any article in a way which arouses reasonable suspicion that an individual is a member or a supporter of a prescribed organisation. So the government is, again, crystal clear. Support for prescribed organisations is wholly unacceptable. And where an offence has been committed, the government trusts that the police will use the full extent of the offences available to them. Now, his final point was about Lady Amos and Katie Amos. I hope that from the response that I gave to the Right Honourable Member earlier on, he will take some comfort about the seriousness with which we address these issues. I'm acutely conscious that we have with us in the chamber a member of Joe Cox's family, and it is absolutely right that we conduct ourselves in a way, which we are, that remembers the loss that the families have suffered and that this House has suffered. And this government will do everything that we possibly can to make sure that those families are supported and these terrible events never occur again.
Patrick Hurley.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I will first say it's disappointing the way in which the benches opposite have approached this question today. This is, I would have hoped, an issue on which the whole House can remain united. Nonetheless, the way in which the matter has been approached is to be regretted. To come to my question, I have no desire to overly pour cold water on the daft political posturings of adolescents being given voice in pop music. It's something that's been going on for decades, and it's somewhat of a rite of passage. But the comments of this band go far beyond what is remotely acceptable in a civilised country. So can I ask the Minister, would he please use his good offices to look to minimise the number of platforms, not just Glastonbury, but the number of mainstream platforms across the board on which this band are being platformed?
Minister.
I'm grateful to him for his question. He's absolutely right about the comments that have been made. We unreservedly condemn them. I think he makes a point which I do want to raise with the House about the importance of the way in which we work cooperatively, collaboratively across this House. I chair the Defending Democracy Task Force. I chair it on behalf of the government, but I also chair it on behalf of all of the members of this House and the other House, and on behalf of those who serve in local government as well. My approach has always been and will always be to work cooperatively with every political party, and I am very happy at any point to meet with any member or any political party to discuss these matters. My door is always open. In terms of the point he made about the profile of the band, I know that he will have heard the words that I spoke with regard to Glastonbury. It's specifically why I'm not naming them, because I do not want to give them any further publicity, but I agree with the sentiment at the point that he made with regard to that.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Lisa Smart.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. The remarks by members of the band are completely unacceptable, and it is right that they have apologised to the families of Sir David Amos and of Joe Cox. But clearly these comments should never have been made in the first place. Incitement to violence against members of Parliament cuts to the very heart of our democracy. The reality is, Madam Deputy Speaker, 2 MPs have been murdered in the last decade. It is absolutely right that the authorities are looking into other comments relating to encouraging support for prescribed terror organisations. And Madam Deputy Speaker, I want to look at what more the government can do. What criteria does the Home Office apply when assessing whether artists or performers are promoting harmful or extremist rhetoric, particularly where there is a clear attempt to provoke public outrage? And what assessment has the Minister made of the impact that comments like these may have on community cohesion?
Minister.
Well, I'm grateful to her, as I always am, for the very sensible and reasonable way in which she's framed her remarks. She's absolutely right. Incitement to violence is utterly unacceptable in any context. But in the context of members of this House and other elected politicians, it is completely unacceptable. And that is why the Prime Minister has recently refreshed the mandate of the Defending Democracy Task Force. That is why, as the chair of that task force, I'm working very closely with law enforcement and with all government departments and the Electoral Commission and a range of different organisations, including the police, to ensure that right around the country we have the most coherent and joined up and properly resourced response. Thinking back to the general election last year, all of us, I'm sure, will have seen things that we consider to have been completely unacceptable. It is the ambition of myself and the government as the chair that electoral events in the future, and currently I'm very conscious that we are working through one at the moment, are fought in a way that, yes, enables and encourages reasonable and robust debate. It's absolutely right that in the cut and thrust of politics there should be the rough and tumble of debate. But I think instinctively we all know where the line is drawn. And this particular incident went miles over where the line should be drawn. So we will continue to look very carefully at the circumstances of this particular case. As I have said, ultimately it is for the police to make an operational decision about where they want to go with it. But I can give her an assurance that through the DDTF we take these matters incredibly seriously, and I'd be very happy to work even more closely with her and her colleagues and with all members of this House in that endeavour.
Chris Vince.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I take this moment to thank the Speaker's Office for the support they give new MPs to ensure that we all feel safe. And I thank the Minister for his response to this UQ and his equal commitment to ensure that members of this House feel safe and secure in their work. However, would the Minister agree with me that when we think about the security of MPs, we must also consider the safety of MPs' staff? I think about the staff who work in my constituency of Harlow, who do their jobs solely because they want to help people in my constituency and should never feel intimidated or unsafe.
Minister.
Well, I'm grateful to him. I think he makes some really important points, and I would like to join with him in thanking Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speakers and all of the Speaker's Office for the work that they do with the Parliamentary Security Department in ensuring that all members of this House are safe and secure. And the Speaker's conference into these matters is a very important process that the government is supporting. I gave evidence to Mr. Speaker along with the Elections Minister from MHCLG a couple of weeks ago. It is a process that we consider to be hugely valuable, and we look forward to Mr. Speaker's conclusions, and we'll want to work closely with him in terms of implementing the findings. He's absolutely right, though, to reference MP staff. All of us will know that often where the rubber hits the road in our constituencies is the extraordinary dedicated work that is being done by our office managers, our parliamentary assistants, our parliamentary caseworkers who do amazing work on our behalf. They are absolutely in my thoughts when I think about these matters. The Bridger network around the country is there for them as well as it is for members of this House. And I think it's also worth adding that in addition to members and their staff, we also need to make sure that our family members are also properly protected. And I have been in touch with the police recently, specifically in regard to incidents that have occurred on a couple of occasions now at members' home addresses. That is totally unacceptable, and I have written to the police constructively to remind them of the powers they have in this regard.
Sir Jeremy Wright.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I know the Minister will agree with me that part of the service that my honourable friend for Raleigh and Whitford has done for the House today is to give us all the opportunity to make a point that really shouldn't need making, namely that incitement to violence against members of Parliament is no more acceptable than incitement to violence against any other member of our society. But would he agree with me that although he's entirely right to be cautious about prejudicing a specific investigation into whether the criminal law has been broken in this instance, what we can and should say today is that artistic licence is not a defence to a breach of the criminal law?
Minister.
I agree with the right honourable gentleman on both counts.
Luke Akehurst.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I think the concern here is not just about the glorification of violence against MPs and the impact that has on the families of MPs who have been murdered in terrorist incidents, whether that's Joe Cox or Sir David Amess, but also the same band has expressed support for Hamas and Hezbollah, which are proscribed groups, and that has an impact on the feeling of safety and security of the Jewish community. The rhetoric they're using represents a return to very ugly rhetoric about communal differences in Northern Ireland, which I know will cause fear and pain to honourable members from Northern Ireland who lost friends and colleagues from terrorism. But my main concern is of the impact on democracy as a whole. Calls for violence against politicians of any party actually have a chilling effect on the willingness of any normal citizen to think
taxi driver looked pretty unhappy. Is that about right?
all sensitive to the window.
I'm just finishing up this because it starts at 4 and then I'm going home. But I did the flyer today. And then I also got these videos from a member of the public. The flyer and how it needs to be done. So what it turned into. Happy to help. Happy to interview as well if you need somebody asking questions. I did that with the other bend yesterday for the last art inquiry. I interviewed the woman who actually took up the thing. So we asked her like 4 questions. I think I saw your live. I did it yesterday
Lovely. Do you want to chat to from air? Yes. Yeah, Liz, that was Email maybe from LBC. I've done here. So so this is we're talking about wartime food security.
15 farmers a day.
Yeah, you had Sailor Zainab, and next week is Rashid. And you guys want to see us?
Yeah, we need to work on figure out what our news does what. If I can get back to you, I'll try to chat.
We know everyone.
Guys, we're going to try and keep the traffic here.
I mean, I don't mind, I can go in.
Right. Yeah. Sorry. I think so. Isn't that what we said? Hey, Dennis, all right? Really, there's oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, it's schools. I signed that. That's what you did. I did know. Yeah. There's one going around, isn't there? There is four. So actually the MS. Right. Sorry.
Oh, have I caught you? God.
Yes, there are two tracks to it, but apparently it's 4x4. Right outside the national.
Can I? Sure, that's nice to have a track in it. Let's go. Just back.
Guys, can you remove that?
No, I need to go quite a lot further.
Lady in green, can you?
Can we go further back? Sorry, can I get you to do a lot more than turning over if you've got enough? No, I've just got a pop. Can we just go?
Yeah, no, monetisation on YouTube, you need millions and millions of putting that together, structuring it, editing it. Oh, you get, what, is that how much you get in a month from the monetisation? Why is that to Christmas time? Still, but you know, if you keep piling up on the content, well, you need to work on your bloody page, don't you? There's nothing on your page. You'll be surprised how, because that bumps up your Google rating as well.
Can I just get you for a moment to look to your right? Oh. Yep.
I'll give you a selection. Okay, so I'll do that.
If you could all look over this side for a moment. Thank you.
Could you just go
back
back
over
where
here?
you
Yes,
were?
once we're right. Do you know how many bits actually work? Oh, yeah, as well. So very strangely. I mean, the fisheries. Any other options, guys?
Can you go like that?
Yeah, of course.
sorry.
Back up here.
Guys!
Left, like a soldier. To the right. To the right. What is this? You got one?
No. I'm hoping I'm not going to need one. No, but if he could soldier. You'll definitely need one. You'll definitely need one. I'm holding the camera.
Yeah. We will look the opposite way to the soldiers. We're going to look to our right. Look right. Over there. Look right. Liz.
Very bad when it's all men.
Come on, Liz. Come on, give in then.
You're in charge. You've got the tractor. I know, but are you getting the tractor in? Yes. Really? Yes. That's all right. I'll stay here. As long as I'm in charge, that's fine.
Look right, guys. Come on, Simon, you should be in here as well. What?
Simon!
Oh, we're not dressed for it.
Don't matter. Dress, you're farming, mate.
Come on here, Liz has spoken. Please come here.
We're working.
Okay, and can I get you to look this way for a minute?
Our country needs us.
Thank you.
Any other shot choices, guys?
Just hang on. I'm just going to
take the lens cap off.
Yeah, that's it. You can take the lens cap off. Just look over the top of me. Yeah.
Any more?
I'd like that.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's all right. I'm used to being both sides of the table.